Everyone. Um, and can I ask before we get started, the UH Department of Medicine, the last person who joined us, who that was?
Sorry, I'll rename myself. My name is Julieta.
Oh, hi, Julieta. And
Hi.
are you with the med school level, or what level are you at?
Yes,
Okay.
please. Yeah.
Med student. Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure, so if I was answering any questions, I could kind of be more specific if it was appropriate. Thank you, Julieta. All right, so we are about to get started, and I'm going to say some very basic things for the recording, so please bear with me, and then we'll get started with the presentation. So let me set up the slideshow. All right. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Laura Reichart. I'm the director of the Hawaii State Center for Nursing and one of the administrators of the Preceptor Tax Credit Program. I want to thank everybody who is here with us today. And today we will be going over how to enter data into the Preceptor Tax Credit Program database. And so we will be going over a number of different scenarios in terms of entering rotations into the database, including how to add a rotation with an existing preceptor, how a preceptor can register, how to add a rotation for and create a new preceptor. So that's for someone who is not yet registered, how to duplicate a preceptor's rotations to make some efficiencies in your work, how to quickly edit items, and then where to find resources on our website. So with that, let's get started. Okay, so how to add a rotation with an existing preceptor. And bear with me while I click back and forth. All right, how to add a rotation with an existing preceptor. The first thing you're going to do is go to the Hawaii Preceptor Tax Credit website. And that is, right now, it's hi-ahec.my.site.com/hiptc/s/login. And I just keep my login saved, and then Amy and I actually share a login. And so I know that's the case for many organizations where maybe multiple people are going to be using the same login. So if you do that, we have a system where we share that login, and we are the only two people who have it. So we know exactly who is entering data. So I'm going to log in. And where you want to go on this preceptor page is the preceptor rotation. So there's home, preceptors, PTC rotation, and reports. And we're really going to be focusing on that PTC rotation section. So I am going to just change this view here so you can see, because I have a couple of these generic test sites. When you go to the PTC rotation, you can change your login to see what has been entered. So you can go my rotations last year, or my rotations this year. So you have some preferred views if you want to check your work that you've already been put in. But if you're going to create a new rotation, you go over to the right-hand corner underneath that yellow bar. There's an icon that says new. And you'll have a new window that pops up. When you have a new window that pops up, only the items with the asterisks are what's required. And so you can plan this work out in advance. And Amy and I have worked with all of the programs, but I've worked specifically with data entering for a few of them. And usually this information is known. So you want your rotation name, and that is based off the specialty or the rotation type. For nursing, it's tied to courses. For medicine, it's by both by kind of specialty or like residency fellowship, as well as some of the general courses. And that kind of follows suit with everyone. So you need to know your rotation name or what course or type of rotation the student is entered into. You need to know the preceptor name. You need to know the preceptor site, but it can be general. So for instance, if somebody's at Kaiser Permanente Mauna Lua, you can put Kaiser Permanente, you can put KP, you can put Kaiser Permanente Mauna Lua, ambulatory care, triage, unit 6. You know, like you can be very specific or you can be very general. So you don't have to worry too much about that. Mostly what we're doing is verifying the site. You need to have the license type, so we can mismatch or mix and match with our preceptors and our students. So if an APRN is the preceptor, they can actually teach a physician, a nurse, and an advanced practice nursing student, and a pharmacist. So you can mix and match. So it's important to know the license type. And then you want the start date, the end date, the number of hours, the student name, and the student type. Important for the start and end date is that you need to have that within the calendar year. If you jump across calendar year, and I know that medicine sometimes does this, if you start in January, or sorry, if you start in December and in January, you need to pick a firm date that ends in that December, and then create a second rotation that is for the January. And if you just need to like divide it by the number of days, and just divide it neatly, that's fine. If you know specifically, sometimes the learners enter those hours, that's even better. Okay, so to input, I am going to make up my fun person. So I have created a couple fake people. So I'm going to search for fakes, and here's my my fake preceptor at my fake site. And you can see it auto-populates. So if you go back, do pay attention, because sometimes you'll see, like if you were to put in any one of these people, if you were going to put in any one of these people, you would see that we've already caught that they're a duplicate, but sometimes there will be duplicate names. And so here, you can see that if I had put in ABC, there would be 1, 2, 3, and XYZ. So you just want to see if you want to look at them and make sure that you are picking the right one. Always pick the one that's active. So both of these are inactive, but active means that they have registered. So if you see 2 Laura Reichardts, pick the one that says active. We'll also clean that work for you at the back end. So if your rotation name, I'm going to go back, I'm going to go into other, and I'm going to do a 1/1/2024 start date and a 12/31/2024 end date, because we're in this calendar year. And then the number of rotation hours, we do rotation hours in increments of 80, but it's cumulative. So if I see 3 students for, let's see, 25 hours each, that would get me to 75. And so I wouldn't be eligible for a tax credit yet because I haven't gotten to that minimum threshold of 80. But then let's say I see 3 students, 25 hours each with a nursing program, and then I actually see 10 hours for a DEO program, that would put me from 75 to 85, and then I would get 1 credit. So we make it cumulative across hours. So don't worry if your preceptors that you're seeing are under that 80 threshold, because there is that cumulative effect across the state. So I'm going to put in the number of hours, and then for the student type, let's say it's a pharmacist. This one is Bugs, last name is Bunny. And so I have the preceptor, I have the preceptor site, I have the rotation, start and end date, rotation hours, student type, first name and last name. And lastly, I need that license type. So I'm going to make sure that license type matches. And then I'm going to click save. And you'll see that it then pops up in this screen afterwards. So you can see that whole rotation. Does anybody have any questions for this for this entering a rotation for a preceptor that already exists. Okay, so not hearing any questions, I'm going to go to that next slide, and that is how a preceptor can register. So as I mentioned, you want to make sure that your preceptor is registered, and you can look to see if a preceptor is registered. You can put in their name here. So I'm going to put in myself, actually, Laura Reichart, because I am registered. So you can see that it's that I'm active right here under registration info. You can also, when we were putting in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, our preceptors, you can see that they had, oh, sorry, where did it go? You can see down here under the preceptors, this bottom filter, you can see under registration that it's active or inactive. And so you want to be looking for that. If they're inactive, you can still enter data for them, and it's actually recommended that you put data in for them, because that's one of the ways that we then work with you all to make sure that they get some communication and they register. If they're not in the system at all, you can do there's 2 ways that you can kind of engage in the system. So the first is that you tell them to go to preceptortaxcredit.hawaii.edu, and they register here. They click on the registration link, and that takes them to this form that actually talks to the database. So you can see they have specific information about their home address, because this is personal tax, it's a personal tax credit. We do ask that their license follows this this code. So for APRNs, it would be APRN-1234, or whatever their APRN is. For MD, it's MD dash. So we don't want to have spaces between it. We have had some wacky license numbers. We do go and look it up, but the license number is actually what matches the people in the back end. And then they need to have that preceptor site information. And so when they enter this, it'll then be matched for them in the system. Or that information will be available for them. And then they have some specific questions that only the preceptor can ask or answer themselves. And so you, in no way, shape, or form, in any circumstance ever, can fill this form out for a preceptor, because this is their attestation to us that we have to prove to the Department of Taxation that we have collected. And this is how we determine that they are eligible. These meet their requirements. So do not fill this out on behalf of a preceptor, but you can see it will take approximately 35 seconds to fill out. It's a pretty fast form. And then you just have them click submit. And that's, as I showed you with my own rotation, that's how I became active. So once somebody fills this out, they'll become active. Okay. The next thing, so that's how you can get a preceptor to register. So if you see that they're inactive, or you see that their name is not in that database at all, you can just have them go to the website and register. But if you see that they're not in the website at all, and you want to get your work done, so you maybe will be working with them and you're going to have them go to the website and register, and you'll be working with them on that engagement piece, but you also want to enter the data, there's still a process for that. So to do that process, you're going to, again, go to PTC rotation. You're going to go to new. And here, you're going to go to new preceptor. So that's the first place you're going to go to. And you can see that there's far less information that you have to fill out. All you need to know is their name, their preceptor site, and their professional license number. You don't need to know anything else. There's no other red asterisk. So name, preceptor site, and license number. If you don't know their license number, what you search is PVL license search, And that's actually where you find that information. So it's professional vocational licensing search. That's how we look up anybody. And then you just put in their names. So if you go to them, and I'll use myself because this is public information. So if you go to business individual, search, attest that you're not a robot, submit, and then their license information pops up. And for nurses, you will want to pick the APRN license. You don't want to pick the RN or if they have an LPN license, because it is the APRN license that qualifies them. Okay, the system is being very slow right now, but that's the place that you would put that information in. Okay, so now we have looked up their, so let's say their name is 123 Fakely. Let's change their last name. We don't need their birthday. Their preceptor site is AC. Let's see, do we have one of those? Yeah, we have an Acme site, and their license number is fake 0987. So that's all I need for them. Okay. If they don't have a preceptor site at all, like let's say they're an independent practice, you're actually going to want to create the preceptor site first. So I'll show you how to do that. So you click save in creating a new preceptor. And then if you can go into here, if it's the same process as the preceptor, if you put in their site and nothing comes up, let's say like Timbuktu, there is no preceptor that is located in Timbuktu, then you can actually create that preceptor site, and it's the same process. So as I said, you can be super general. So you could just write Timbuktu. You don't need the actual street address because we can get that from the provider. Okay, so you've put in so now you've created that new preceptor. And then you pull in their site, and then it's the exact same information that you do with a preceptor who's already in the database. So you pick their start date and their end date and their student type. And who are we doing today? Let's do George of the Jungle. I hope you're singing the songs in your head as well as me. Okay. Oh, and I didn't do something, so it talks to you. I forgot the hours. Look at that. And this person has a 90. So again, if you have a preceptor that is new to the system, you can go in and you go into that preceptor. You go into the preceptors. You click, or I'm sorry, not preceptors. You go into the PTC rotations. You go to new, and you can do it all in this database just by clicking that bottom option, new preceptor. This is very important for this. And we had a couple of our programs that kind of got caught up on this. If you create a preceptor using that option, by using that new option, they still will be inactive until that person goes and registers. This is just an efficiency so that you can get your data entry in and you're not scrambling at the end of the year. And that's, that's very important to us because we want you to have your end of the year breaks. And we also need that data in because January, we have to have our preceptor tax credit rotations processed by the end of January. So it's super crunch time in January, which means you have to get all that data in really by the early part of December. So you should be getting your data in. And what we do throughout the year, Amy Ono does this throughout the year, and then she does it in December, and then we go back, Kelly and I go back and do more of it in that last week of December, is we go through and we comb the data and we match anyone who maybe wasn't a perfect match. Like maybe I accidentally put 2 spaces between my first name and my last name. So, you know, like the way you entered it and the way I entered it is just a little bit different. We'll fix all that. That's our job. We do that on behalf of you. That's why Amy sends those reports. So you all are looking at how you entered the data. So is she. And we have this opportunity. We look at the unregistered and the registered preceptors, and we're matching it. We're cleaning that data. And it's a really wonderful process. It's working really well. But it's important to remember that if a preceptor is in here, it does not mean they are active or registered. Only if they went to that this form and completed it. That's the only way they become active. They only have to do this form one time in their life. If they change specialties, or if they change settings, or if they change physical addresses or email addresses, they can update it, certainly. But they don't have to be doing this annually. So we have people who registered in 2019 and their verification is still in good standing. And again, it's so what you want to be looking at, and let me go to the here. So what you want to be looking at is that you will see that they're marked as inactive under registration status, and then they'll be called active. And you see a whole bunch of other information, their home address. You see all of this other information on the screen filled out, and that's your clue that they're active. But we also send a separate report to you. Amy does throughout the year that has a list of your providers that have hours that are inactive, which would be the impetus for you to email them or communicate with them and give them the link to register, as well as a list of preceptors who have signed into this database, but don't have any hours registered. And that's your list to work through to get new preceptor sites for your program. Okay, so the next, any questions for adding a rotation and creating a new preceptor? Okay, let me know if you think of anything. The next one is how to duplicate a preceptor's rotations. So this one is great, particularly for our colleagues in medicine, because you have so many rotations that will be like 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours. You'll have 35 rotations, each 5 hours, and they're all kind of within the same time period. So you set up your first rotation, and we'll just use this one as an example. And then again, in that top right corner, you see some options, and you're going to want to click clone. And then the magic is that then you go down. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong. Let me go to the rotations. I apologize. I showed you the strong string. So we're still going to pick this rotation. You're going to click on a rotation. So let me go back. So PTC rotations, and you're going to click on the rotation. So for 1, 2, 3 fakely, for at the ACME site, you're going to click on this first link rotation, and it pulls up the whole rotation. So you can see start date, end date, hours, student type, name. And here is where you go clone. And then when you click on clone, then you're gonna say, oh, well, I have the same dates, the same amount of hours, the same type of student, but now this is like Spider-Man. Save. And then you can clone another one. You just keep on popping it up and doing more and more and more. So you can do, you know, now his friend Batman is also in that course, and they're taking it again. And so when you go to the PTC rotations, you'll see that now I've done quite a small amount of work, but now I have multiple people in those rotations. So that's really good for that is a really good strategy for medicine in particular, because there's so many providers who take such a large number of preceptors. The other thing you can do, and this happens a little bit more in nursing, I've seen, is that you'll have one student who might float between 2 providers in the same clinic. So you can do that same thing. And let's say this is a nursing, so we're going to go to clone. And it's one student who's floating between 2 providers. And so let's say it's the total is they've figured it out and they're like, I'm going to do 90 hours with one provider and 100 hours with the other. So you're going to take, you can just change whatever you need, click the X and put in 2, 3, and the other provider is ABC 1, 2, 3. And so then you're just switching out the provider name because it's all the same practice information, it's all the same time frame, a little bit of different hours, and you have the same student. So those are 2 different ways that you can use the clone feature to your advantage. Okay, any questions for duplicates? Okay. All right, one of the big things we get to is particularly at the end of the year, a lot of all of the programs will know at the start of their rotations, like who, where these students or learners are getting sent off to. And there's a time crunch problem always in December. So we recognize that you may know that your 25 students are going to be going out to 25 different locations, and they ought to be finishing their work by a certain deadline, whether it be the end of the calendar year or the end of the semester. So you could actually, as an efficiency, go into the system at the beginning of the semester, put everybody as they're assigned, and then correct your work throughout the year or throughout that semester. So the way to do that is you go back to this PTC rotations, and you can click then on rotations this year, or you could click on all rotations, but I like rotations this year. Okay, so you can see who I've entered, and I'm going to say, okay, well, I was assuming that all of these people started January 1st, 2024, ended oh, look, I have a typo here. They were supposed to end on the 1st, not the 31st. So I can correct my work by, just hitting enter and then click save. So I can go down my list and I can say, you know what, they actually did 90 hours. They were planning on doing 56, but then something happened with that other provider. So I'm going to click that little pen thing. And then at the bottom of the screen, if you can see it, you click save. So you can go down your list. So you could, like, for instance, for Chaminade, you could put in all your students who are out for rotations this semester. When you have time, maybe like you have a lull and you have 2 hours and you can cram that data in. And then by May 16th, that you should know exactly what their hours are, you can just pull them in and work them through the list, fix it, and make sure it's correct. And then what's really great is you will be, that's pretty fresh data, so you don't have to go back and kind of remember, particularly if a student is graduating, you may not have them available to ask for clarification. And so that really does help with that real-time communication. So you can do that anywhere where there's a pen. The PTC code is the unique identifier, so you can fix the rotation name, start, end, preceptor, name, site, hours, and student name. So it's pretty robust. Okay, and then I just want to, as a general resource, where can you find these resources? Where are you going to get these training resources if you need a reminder? So if you go to preceptortaxcredit.hawaii.edu, which is our Preceptor Tax Credit website, and then the middle option here is resources. And there's a ton of resources here for you. You can see our annual reports, and then in the second committee, or in the second section, there's all these different tutorials that we have developed in the past. And so we can update these now, but they're all the same. We also do have this top link is a Preceptor Tax Credit allocation sheet. So if you do have a student or a learner, a resident or fellow who is dividing, is at one clinic location, but maybe dividing their time between 4, and you need a mechanism to track, like, okay, Roger is doing a quarter and Samantha is doing another quarter, and then Bill is doing the remaining 50% and how am I going to remember this? You can actually use a form. We have a form that can help you track that information. I think a lot of sites will, they'll like I know UH Manoa, they used Hyphon, and so they're getting that information from the student entry data. But there are different ways, and we do have that tool for you if you need to use them. And again, each of these tutorials by that specific task. Okay, I also want to show you under FAQs, if a provider is wondering if they're eligible, they have these, we have these great questions. They're very detailed. How do I update my registration? So it's just like, go back to the form. What counts as a volunteer supervised clinical training rotation? So we have all these scenarios. Like I said, it's cumulative. So if across 5 different rotations, there's 160 hours, that would qualify for 2 rotations. Now, if there's 400 hours across 5 different rotations, then they get that full 5 credits. So they have to both meet the minimum number of hours and also have the minimum number of rotations. So if somebody does 160 hours for one student, the lowest common denominator is that 1, so they only get 1 credit. Two students at 160 hours, they would get those 2 credits. 5 students, 160 hours, that's 80 divided by 2, so they would only get 2 credits. So we kind of explained that here. It's confusing, but we have a system. But if people are really curious about it, we just describe that process. And then we also have this, for the purposes of this credit, what is primary care? So actually by type of program, or by school or residency, we do have the rotations that qualify. And all of the primary care residencies, so family medicine, sports medicine, OB-GYN, those all count. And then we also geriatrics as well. And so we have these listed, and this is actually that's what's listed as your rotation on the drop down. So if they're also wondering, like, do I count or do I not? They would count. For home clinic, I know that there are a lot of specialty providers who then volunteer in a primary care capacity for home clinic. So two important notes for clinic sites like that. If they are volunteering and they're using a primary care specialty, it is important that when they register, they put like internal medicine or family nurse practitioner, or family medicine, family physician. So you want to put that primary specialty. You don't want them only to list their specialty. Like, so we do have some, like, I am neurologists, and then they volunteer in a primary care clinic, and that's where they see the students. So you want to let the preceptors know when they are registering that they can put every specialty they have that is active, whether it be that base foundational one or beyond, because we will look at all that information to make it work. Okay, so that is it from me. I'm happy to share any additional screens. I also want to emphasize that, like, if you are in the middle of a process and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on, I've completely forgotten what happened in April, we're here for you. We'll retrain you, we'll walk you through it. We'll get on the phone, we'll do a webinar, we'll do whatever you need to help you through the process. So we're not going to abandon you. We're definitely, like, the data enters for all of the rotations is the most critical data piece, because without this information, we don't have anything to give it credit for. So this is super critical, and we want to be as customer service oriented as we can be to make your lives easier. So we are always going to respond and try to help you. It's definitely a lot easier in the spring, summer, and early fall, because we know that you want to be going on holiday. So many people do at the end of the calendar year. And so having the big questions kind of saved to the end can just come up to a time crunch situation. So, you know, if you're working on it, ask that question immediately and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And we try to be very, very responsive. All right. Does anybody have any questions? I didn't see anything pop up. But I want to be able to address any questions that you have. If you have logistical questions, if you have theoretical questions, if you want to see another screenshot or an example again, we can go through it. And if you don't have questions, we can give you 20 minutes of your time back. And we'll make this video available to folks so that you do have that reminder or that you can share with your colleagues. All right, thanks, Sam. So Amy, can I put you on the spot? The first round of data entering is due pretty quickly. It's due in about a month. Do you want to say anything to that or let anybody go?
No, not really. Just that I'll be sending out all of the verifications and doing all of that work very shortly.
Yeah. So do remember, so Amy, all of the data that Amy sends you is the data that you have entered yourself. And it's the purpose of that throughout the year is to share it with your team. So if you are an administrative support and you're not if you're not the clinician, sometimes it's helpful to be like, hey, did I miss anything? If you are the clinician and you're also putting in the data, sometimes it's good to put it to the course coordinator and not the DNP chair. You know, there's all these different scenarios, there's all these different team members. So please do use your whole team because that's where that spidey sense comes in and you're going to be like, oh, didn't Bob do something? And then you'll be able to reach out to Bob or reach out to the student and get that data in. And we've seen huge improvements in the data quality because of this collaborative work process. And then the other thing is Amy will send that list of inactive providers, and we do not have their contact information. Only you do. So you can do two things. One is you are very welcome when you create a rotation for a new provider, you can put their email information in. But in general, only you have the contact information for inactive providers that you've entered rotations for. And we send you that list back so you can go and contact them and be like, hey, we're starting to clock hours for you. You may be eligible for a tax credit. Like, can you go and do this 2-minute or less survey or form? So if you are qualified, you can get those tax credits as that recognition from the state. So just want to remind you all of that. And otherwise, I wish you all a very happy weekend. And if you have any questions, we're here for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Sandra. All right, have a good weekend, y'all.